Welcome to the Garlic Marketing Show. Ian Garlic here, and today we're going to talk about email marketing for e-commerce, some of the techniques, some of the latest tips. I think this is a huge subject that's underused by everyone. And even if you're not in e-commerce, you can learn some stuff here. Before we get started, don't forget this is brought to you by storycruise.com, the ultimate resource for finding video experts for your business, local video experts around the world. But one of the fastest ways to grow your business with video is video case stories, not testimonials. To learn how to 4X your current campaigns and learn why you should never use video testimonials, just go to storycruise.com/case story. There's a whole bunch of resources there for getting started and of ultra fast, ultra quick get started button that you can get them done in as short as a few weeks. And that's easy for me to say. All right, Mr. Dean Dutro from Worth eCommerce. Thank you very much for being on.
Appreciate you having me. I'm excited to connect.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I mean, you've been doing some big stuff. We'll talk a little bit about Worth eCommerce because obviously I think you have an interesting story. And we just talked about it beforehand. We're going to talk about it again. And then we're going to talk about what's working in a variety of industries, including CBD, which I know is a hot topic right now. But tell me, let's go into your story real quick, because I think it's a great story of dip and then success.
You know, my sort of entrepreneurial journey started with my best friend from college, actually. He's my roommate as well. We had graduated college, and a couple of years later, he had been doing this like digital nomad thing where he was a UX designer for various companies like Estee Lauder and the Marriott and vodka or Absolute Vodka and things like that. And he approached me one winter. He's like, "Hey man, I know you're doing sales. I really want to grow this business. Do you want to like travel the world with me and make a bunch of money and like live on beaches and stuff?" And at the time I was like living in Portland. I was like, yeah, it sounds good. And the job I had, I actually loved. So it was pretty hard to leave. It wasn't like I hate my job and I want to leave. I was working as a aviation staffing sales, and was traveling all over the country on airplanes, like testing out other airplanes and trying to sell staffing services and meeting like at military bases and in the middle, like just like random places that like people have never heard of. And so it was actually kind of tough, but I thought I could use those sales skills and apply it to his business and learn. And we did just that. We went to Europe, we went to Asia, spent some time in Australia, went to Mexico, and did that digital nomad thing, inspired by Tim Ferriss and all those sort of stories you hear, and had a blast. But we didn't really succeed, right? We ended up losing a bunch of money. I think I went 40 or 50 grand in debt just through like the traveling and trying new business things and not really figuring out our market. And ended up leaving Australia just kind of like with my tail between my legs, and ended up moving back in with my parents for about 4 or 5 months, trying to figure out what I was going to do next and not really wanting to get a job. So I had gotten lucky because a couple of our clients were in e-commerce, and e-commerce was starting to take off. I think this is in 2016 or 17. One of them was Koala Mattresses, which is like the Casper of Australia. They approached us. We're still doing some UX design. They're like, "Hey, could you do our email marketing?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do that." And they're like, "Okay, what's it cost?" So we like put together a proposal, had no idea, and upsold them. And then that week I learned email marketing. I basically Frankensteined as many strategies as I could. I tried searching for courses. There weren't any at the time. All of it was like HubSpot. You could like everything, like HubSpot owned the SEO market for email for some reason. And I just scraped together this plan and launched it with them on a platform called Klaviyo, which is who we still use. And within a couple of weeks, they were seeing a 15% revenue lift, and they were doing millions of dollars in revenue already. And I was like, wow, this works. I was like, and it wasn't that hard. It was hard to implement and learn it all, but it wasn't like actually that hard. And so we continued to work with them, grew their revenue. And I decided at that point, like, hey, I'm not going to do UX design. I'm going to go all in on email. And I created a bunch of freelance profiles, start by myself, doing all the copy, all the design, all the strategy. I was charging like $500 a month at the time. And, was making okay money, but decided to hire a team of about 3 of us. And one of the things I think is important is when we first started in business, there was no mission, there was no path. It was kind of selfish all for us. This time around, I actually learned through some business mentors, through Jason Swank, was like, hey, you got to have a mission, you got to have values, you got to figure out what your driving force is. And for me, I come from a small business background. My parents were entrepreneurs, my grandparents were entrepreneurs and small business owners. And for me, it was like, I could see this working for other businesses and leveraging this platform, this email system to help them generate profit, help them grow, help them create something that lasts. And that became sort of one of the driving forces for me. And to build a local community. Traveling was great, but there was no community. It kind of was rough. And I went back to Oregon with the idea of I want to build up the local community, employ people. And now we started with 3, now we're about 50 employees here and continuing to grow, just focused on email and SMS. And now what we call owned marketing.
Oh, cool. And I want to ask you about owned marketing because I think that's important. But, you talk about community, why do you feel that was so important to your growth?
I think that for me, there's a couple of reasons. One is, while I was traveling, I had a great time, but I felt lonely, just personally. And to me, community has always been big in my life. When I looked back at my high points in life, it's always been around some sort of community, whether it was helping with like the local organizations or being in college on different forums and things like that. That was important to me personally. And the other piece is that when you have a vision and mission, you attract the best talent and you attract people that are loyal and want to stay. And, I got lucky that most of our employees are in Oregon, and we don't outsource that much work. And people have stayed with us since the beginning. One of the things I'm most proud of is our employee churn is very, very low. I think we've had 2 people leave, in 4 years of being in business. And so I think that driving force, is also something that helps leverage loyalty.
Nice. And how do you feel? That loyalty is obviously important, but I know there's a lot of agencies out there like you started that work just with contractors. And since you've seen both sides of it, and how do you feel that changes the work work product that you have as an agency?
Yeah. So that's a great question. Since I was a contractor for a while, I feel like I have some insight into the different mentalities and mindsets of how an employee versus a contractor work. But ultimately, most people want to grow. Most people want to get better at their skill sets. Most people, want to be good at their skill sets. And the biggest difference I find between freelancers and sort of employees is freelancers take a lot more risk. And they are often going for the highest dollar, which is not a bad thing at all. In fact, it makes them a lot more reliable in some respects. So I'm not against hiring one or the other. What I'm for is figuring out when it makes sense to do one or the other, right? So what I found is I made the mistake of growing mainly employees, but then when we would lose clients, I'm still having to cover payroll. Whereas if you have contractors and you lose clients, you're not paying more, right? It's kind of like it's a wash. So that's something I learned, especially at scale. Once we're at 30 or 40 employees, any sort of client churn is a really heavy hit to your monthly payroll. But if you have contractors where it can kind of bridge those gaps, especially those learning gaps when you're scaling up and you have to train a lot of new people, contractors come in, know what they're doing, can get started right away. They're more expensive, but they don't cost you anything when you lose some clients.
Nice. So, and you're mainly employees now, right?
Yeah. It's mainly employees. And then we've got a really good contractor pool for those sort of, again, growth stages or those kind of churn events that happen every once in a while.
That's great. I think that's a great blend, because that's the thing with agency life, right? It's because it's big, fast growth and then nothing for a little bit. And, and it's going to happen. That churn's going to happen, but you have to be able to do it. And I think that's fantastic. You're doing that. So, now let's talk a little bit. I want to get into some of those email marketing techniques that we talked about at the beginning, but how are you staying on top of the best email marketing techniques? How are you making sure that you're constantly pushing that envelope both for yourself and for your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we have a strategy team of 3 people dedicated to just learning what's new, learning what's going on. And they will disseminate knowledge to people. But one of the other values that we look for in employees is a sense of ownership and entrepreneurship, right? So we've got one guy on the team, Chris, who's a project manager. He will pose questions. He'll see a new software, right, through Shopify or through some other program. He'd be like, hey, could we use this for our clients? And then we're always like, yeah, let's figure out something and try it. And so it's a combination of top-down knowledge and bottom-up right? Because I can't know everything. I can't know all the new apps. I'm busy growing the business. I kind of describe myself. I'm not like, I used to be an email marketer and now I'm running a business, right? And I feel like a lot of agencies go through that where they're the expert and now they're trying to run a business. And so my strategy team, they're better at me, right? At email marketing right now. They know all the things. They know the best platforms, the best strategies. They're doing the data crunching and they can tell you a lot more about it than I can now, which is good in my opinion.
That's amazing. Yeah. And that's the way it should be. Right. I mean, like you think about Steve Jobs was neither the best programmer, nor the best designer, nor the best hardware developer. He was the best leader. And I think that means a lot for your clients. And then, so let's shift then into what strategies are working. You talked a little bit about owned marketing. Tell me a little bit about what that means and what strategies are really working for you right now.
Yeah. And also, I don't think I can compare myself to Steve Jobs, but that's nice. That is a good way to think about it. So owned marketing, I didn't coin the term. I would say Klaviyo probably coined the term and they're sort of pioneering it and we're riding that wave, is this idea of like in the digital space, in the online world, what are the actual assets that you control, right? Your email list. That's the biggest asset that you control. If you talk to any entrepreneur who's been in business for 20 plus years, they're going to tell you that their email list was their driving force for a long, long time. And it's the oldest form of digital marketing. Which is kind of interesting. Your own content, your own sort of blog posts, your podcast, your anything that you sort of own, right? Phone numbers, SMS marketing, which is becoming really easy now, is something that you own. What you don't own are Facebook, Instagram, I would say YouTube, any sort of platform where you're using someone else's channel. And the reason why it's so important is, how many horror stories have you heard of Google changing their SEO algorithm and then clients being wiped out, their visitors just being lost, or Facebook banning certain things from being advertised, or, when last March and April, they just paused random accounts, and people couldn't advertise anymore. That was their main revenue source. That happened to me and many of my clients back before a lot of changes happened. When they happened, email became the bridge of cash flow, right? To be able to find other ways of growing their revenue. But then when times are good, it becomes a profit well, right? It becomes something that decreases customer acquisition costs and increases customer lifetime value, right? So it's kind of this massive lever to grow your business's profitability. So oftentimes clients will have the same revenue, but they'll be more profitable, right? Which is kind of interesting to think about.
Nice. And you talked a little, own marketing, God. It's funny you say that because it's so scary to me. We did mainly SEO for a long time, video SEO and getting on there. It's like you get clients to number one and you just never knew, because Google for a while there, it was just like massive SEO changes. So it's like, you didn't know if you're going to wake up the next day and everything was going to be gone and not know why. It's a scary, scary feeling. And, luckily we never had any problems with it, but we'd get clients calling us, prospects calling us up all the time, be like, my business is gone.
Yeah.
And I laugh about it, but it's a horrible thing, but it's a scary thing. And I think it's funny you say that because it's so many businesses that I encounter don't do any email marketing, are so scared of it, or, and don't collect emails and don't stay in touch with them. And I just don't get it. And do you see that a lot still in e-commerce companies?
I see that now, 4 years ago, everyone was like, I don't want to put a pop-up on my website. I don't want to bother people. I don't want to hurt conversions. So that was sort of an objection before. Now there's been so much talk about the value of it that I don't have to sell it anymore, right? Because it's there. The average return is like $42 for every dollar you spend. Like on average across industry, not just e-commerce, but a lot of people are doing it bad. And a lot of people are just sending mass emails, not really segmenting, not really figuring out what their customers want, not building a relationship with people in that owned marketing space, which is, I think, why some of the top brands that you see are often pretty good at it. Right. And we talk about strategies and tactics. If you want to go there, there's a few sort of easy strategies that can be implemented to boost your open rates or click-through rates and your revenue. If you want to dive into that.
Of course. Okay. I love that stuff.
Okay, cool. So a few things. One is that email marketing should not just be blasting, right? It should be set up. You should create automations. The top 4 performing automations are a welcome series, a new customer series, a browse abandonment or page abandonment series, and obviously cart abandonment. Most people know that. And if you Google it, that's the first thing that pops up. One of the other leading sources of revenue is what we call a VIP series. And this is a specific flow to your top customers, top 20%, 10% of your customers, where you're using email, you're using SMS, you're using other channels to enhance that relationship further to create what we call backyard marketing, right? So that's the marketing that happens when people are having beers and eating, barbecue in their backyard and they're talking about this brand they just purchased something from. And the idea there, I didn't actually come up with that. I took that from someone. I can't remember who, but that's not my original idea. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, here, most marketing ideas, there's very few original ideas. I mean, if we look back 100 years, I have Brian Kurtz on all the time, and he's amazing. And like, he has these old marketing books, and in some way, shape, or form, this is all from there.
Yeah.
So
it's all fundamentals.
It's fundamentals. Exactly.
Yeah. And so one of the things you can do is you can send a video, right? We'll advise our clients, hey, like, send a video thanking your customers for their purchase, right? Literally thank them for time they've spent searching, all that stuff, right? Like something like that. Send them a text message. I even had actually one guy I just connected with who I'm going to share this because he shared it with me, and I'm going to start sharing with my clients, is when clients reach a certain threshold of revenue with him, he'll literally pick up the phone and call them, right? As the founder of the company, if a customer purchases $1,000 worth of product, he'll send them an email, send them a text, and he'll give them a phone call, right? Talk about building loyalty and building relationship. He says he does 3 or 4 a week, 15, 20 minutes a day.
And what a surprise, right? No one's doing that.
What a surprise. And it's insane. And, he's a $20 million company under the radar, right? Just doing these things that are growing. And I thought that was killer. Like, why not do that? Right. I always thought, I was always proud of, send a video. Now I'm like, hey guys, you should call them. Like, good strategy outside of email, but you have their phone numbers. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, on Giants, a video when we had Joey Coleman on, he talked about that. It's like one of the strategies of just, it's so simple to do, but it blows people away. It's like, and the more customized it can be, the better it is. I love the video side of it and also the phone calling side of it. It's fantastic. I mean, that's a great thing to do. And what kind of results by doing these things do you see people get?
So we see the biggest metric that we look at is CLV, customer lifetime value, right? So through email, through SMS, you can dramatically increase the customer lifetime value if you're doing it right. If you're not doing it right, people will leave and they'll be annoyed. Mm-hmm. But it's about what's nice with like digital communication is you can connect with the right person at the right time with the right message, right? Like you have that data, when they're purchasing, when they're looking at products, what channels they like to purchase on, et cetera. Another interesting strategy that I think is going to be used more and more, which actually I used to be 100% against until recently, is driving your email traffic to Amazon when it makes sense, right? So in my field, a lot of people are saying, just build out your Shopify site, like don't get on Amazon anymore. You hear a lot of that sort of two factions, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you've heard that. I have in the space.
Oh yeah.
It's like, I'm either all in on Shopify or all in on Amazon.
Yep.
Sometimes I do both, but it's what you can do is you can actually create segments in your software where you can kind of assume if people are purchasing on Amazon or not, right? You can create a pass-through data point of a referring domain. And you'll find a lot coming from Amazon. So you can assume they're purchasing on Amazon, and you can send the same, let's say Black Friday email to some people who come from Amazon, right? Through some assumptions. And then also people that are purchasing on your site, you just send them to your site, right? Often Amazon has higher conversion rates, right? That's a fact. It can be 10, 15, 20% compared to your store at 2 or 3%. Mm-hmm. So are you willing to do the math and figure out maybe Amazon, cost me a little bit more, but I'm getting a lot more conversions? Is that something worth considering? And you have their emails for other launches and things like that. So that's one strategy that I think is very unique and not a lot of people are doing.
And I think that's a strategy, even if you're not in e-commerce, you should realize is that when you send, because I used to be the same way. Like I wrote a book on SEO and I was like, send all your traffic to your owned media, right? Because you want to own it, you want to get the rankings, but you want to keep everything yourself. But these websites, they reward you when you're sending traffic because they're like, hey, they're sending outside traffic to here. Let's boost the ranking. I know it happens on YouTube a lot. And that, some things I tell people to do is like, use YouTube. And they're like, well, why shouldn't I embed it on my landing page? I'm like, because YouTube's going to see that you are sending traffic and it's going to amplify that. So I think that's a fantastic strategy. And so you were talking about another one,
the VIP messaging, the Amazon strategy, and then SMS.
Gotcha.
So SMS is very similar to email in certain ways in terms of how you set up automations and do campaigns, but as an added layer of sophistication, where if you hire somebody to do customer support for your SMS, you'll find much higher engagement, right? A lot more people asking questions. And I have the hypothesis that the age demographic is actually more baby boomer than it is younger, because this is kind of my thoughts, is my grandparents hate email, but they're texting all the time. So I find that companies with older demographic, SMS works exceptionally well, but any other company, SMS tends to work really well. It's just like a little something I've noticed. Could be true, could not be true. I'm sure someone will come out with a white paper on it, but you want it to be two-way communication. If you go to a company like Hydro Flask, which I love, their SMS kind of sucks. They're just sending you sales all the time.
Yeah.
But if you ask them a question, will they respond? And they should prompt that response, right? You should actually ask people to respond to your text messages and have someone in place to answer them that you trust. You'll see a lot more people purchasing, and you'll see some higher conversion rates.
That's super, super smart, super smart. And that's something too that I think once again, any business can do. Yeah. Because so many people like to text more. And I tell people all the time, make your phone number a textable number, and tell them it's a textable number, because people, I don't want to sit around for a chat and like on a website. I'm like,
no,
it's like, oh yeah, this chat, you're fourth in line. Or even so, it's like, you can tell that they're chatting with other people and there's this delay. And I'm like, I don't have the attention span for this. I mean, there's kittens and babies I've got to watch. But having that text, I think that's a great thing to do. So, but when you're, I want to switch it over, because you have these techniques. Are these the techniques that you're using for companies like CBD companies? Because I want to talk about CBD companies, not just because of promoting CBD, whatever your thoughts are on it. I know it helps a lot of people out. I want to say because it's very difficult to market it because of all the regulations. It is a very, very difficult, scary thing to market. We've done videos for it. And it's like one of those things that you have to know so many different things. But I think, email and text are a great way to do it. What are some of the techniques that you're using there, to build lists, to keep a list, to engage better?
I mean, it's the same fundamentals, right? The biggest change is, where is the traffic coming from? So in the past, you couldn't advertise CBD on Facebook. I'm not sure if you still can or not, but a lot of CBD traffic is probably affiliate marketing, right? So people sending traffic somehow through SEO to your page may not know you that well. And so you really got to think about brand indoctrination and building trust, right? So I always advise CBD clients, the first sort of interactions people have with you should be about building trust. That should be your number one priority, especially in the market where there is a lot of snake oil. But if you have a good quality product, like your first 3-4 emails in your automations should be trust building, whether that's social proof, whether that's awards for quality, whether it's, again, a video from the founder talking about like putting himself on the line or herself on the line for the product. Like those things are really powerful. In terms of engagement, SMS seems to work really well. And, I think the best way, a lot of people say, should I capture an email or a phone number? You should really do both, but prioritize email, because SMS is a relatively new industry at scale. It's been done in the past, but not like it has this last year. So, use a program like Justuno, where you can capture an email, and then the second page can be where you capture a phone number. And then at checkout, you can capture both as well in the US, where you should be, it shouldn't change your email capture rates at all. Another quick strategy, is we like to make it so they have to check their email or their phone number in order to get any sort of incentive, right? So we will almost never put a coupon on site, with the theory and really the results that if you can get your first couple of email open rates up in what would be called your welcome flow to 70%, because people have to go back and check an email, you may lose some conversions, not a significant amount, but your overall email system will have higher open rates across the board. right? Because Google is taking that indicator from those emails you're sending that this is a good company. People are opening the emails, right? Like that is a huge strategy to help boost your overall email system.
I think this is an important topic. And, I'm glad you brought it up because people don't realize how much Google is clamping down. And what are you seeing happen there as far as Google and email marketing? Because I don't know how many people are running on Google, either G Suite or Gmail. It's a big proportion of it. But what are you seeing as far as email deliverability and what ways to boost that when it comes to Google?
Yeah. So that what I just said will help a lot. Google, you're almost never going to trick Google into ending up in someone's inbox, right? Anyone that says that, like I literally send millions of emails a month. Like it doesn't work.
It's funny you say that because people would always come to me like, oh, this person has this SEO trick. I'm like, so you're telling me that someone who's going to charge you $500 or $1,000 or even $10,000 is smart enough to trick Google, whose one job is this, and they employ 30,000 of the world's smartest people and use 1% of the world's energy to make sure this one experience is perfect. And this guy's going to get past them.
Like even the old trick of like, you'd see those emails where it's like, add us to your whitelist so you never miss an email. Like, even if you drag people to your inbox from your promotions tab, you're still going to end up in promotions.
Yep.
Right. Like people don't realize that. That being said, there are a few other things that will increase overall deliverability, making sure you're sending to an engaged list. Engagement in Google's eyes right now means 120 days between the time someone has been to your site and either opened or clicked an email. After that, basically, they'll just automatically send you to trash, which is something that a lot of people don't know is if you go check your trash, you're going to find not your spam, but your trash. You're going to find emails that you never deleted that were sent from companies. You may have joined their email list 2 years ago or a year ago. Text-based emails, you're not going to trick Google that you're going to show up in the inbox, but it increases the engagement. You'll often see higher click rates, right? Because images will sometimes be shut off. So we're actually seeing a trend in deliverability where very few images and more text perform better. So we call it a snack bite. It's a hero image, a little bit of text, and a call to action. That's your best shot. There's some more things, but that's one of the easiest ways to increase deliverability is keep it simple.
Yes, keep it simple and valuable, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing people are like, I hear that all the time. Oh, I don't want to bother my customers. I'm like, well, if you're providing value for them, they're going to open your emails. Yeah. But if you're just like, buy now, then yeah, that's irritating.
There's actually a kind of a viral strategy that we implemented for one of our clients. I actually got from a conference. So again, another marketing strategy that I can't own up to, but it was this quirky company where they sell like golf gear. I won't give the name, but we put a secret keg in their email, like a hidden image, essentially, a hidden link. And if someone found that link, they would get some sort of free gear or gift or a keg sent to them, right? And that caught on really quick. So we would have these full emails. I think this was during Easter of last year. We did like a keg, like some sort of like an Easter keg and hid it inside an email, gamified it. And now every month we'll put the keg in there and the first 10 people to click it will get a free gift. Most people that join the list don't know that right away, but they somehow find it out through a friend. That grew their list pretty quick because people were interested in that keg gift.
I love it. I'm actually going to use that idea. I've had something like that. I'm going to use it. And I'm going to put that on my YouTube channel. So yeah, I'm going to test that out on some videos because I think that's genius. So, I value your time. I could talk this all day because I think it's so important and so powerful. And even if you're not in e-commerce, you should be doing this stuff. But if you are in e-commerce and you want help with email marketing, I know Dean's helped a lot of businesses grow. I mean, you told the first story, but tell us a little bit about some of your recent results that you've gotten for companies.
So, Black Friday just hit and the holidays just hit, and it was the biggest season ever in an email history, I would say, in e-commerce history. Most of our clients were hitting an average of 37% of their total online revenue coming from email. There's been a ton of growth. Most of our clients, they've grown so much, leveraging email that they've hired 3 or 4 new people onto their team. So it's not just about like their own personal revenue. It's like adding, people to the e-commerce space. My mission is to actually have 1,000 e-commerce stores grow $1 million in revenue each with just the email. That to me equates to like 10 jobs. It's like 10,000 new jobs or 1,000 new jobs that are being created in e-commerce. And, for people that weren't there before, we're getting pretty close to that number.
That's awesome.
So, we've just seen massive growth. And part of that is riding the wave of e-commerce, but when the wave's coming, you got to leverage it. And I think that, for this year, you should really start marketing for the holidays and Black Friday, like now, and building up your list and getting prepped and having a plan of action. Because there were too many clients who had to turn away last year because there wasn't anything set. It wasn't, the foundations weren't built.
You don't start marketing for Black Friday on November 1st.
Yeah.
But a lot of people think that they're like, oh, I need to get Black Friday sale out. Thanksgiving's next week.
Yeah.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about working with you if someone wants to get a hold of you, and also tell us about your podcast before we do that. Tell me about your podcast.
Oh yeah. So we started this podcast last year through Jeremy and his team, but it's called the Relationship Commerce Podcast. And it's talking with e-commerce business people and founders about their stories, their struggles, their strategies that are working to scale now. A lot of the twist is on building relationships with their customers. So we have a lot of mission-driven companies, owned marketing companies, tons of advice on, if you're just starting in e-commerce or if you've got a $10 million brand, like we've got all sorts of people on 100%, in the e-commerce space with some cool authors and agencies thrown in there as well.
Nice. Very, very cool. And if someone wants to follow you or get a hold of you, what's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. If you just search Dean Dutro on LinkedIn or Worth E-commerce, go to worthecommerce.com. We're doing a website design change, so bear with us. And then I also have an email course if you want to learn email marketing but don't want to hire an agency. It's called emailgrowthtraining.com. Got a ton of members, good results. It's basically what we use for most of our clients, enabled for you to use
Nice.
if you're interested in educating yourself.
Love it. Love it. Tons of resources. And obviously Dean's a great guy. I love the mission. I think that's so important. When you're choosing an agency to work with or, any company, whether you should be putting your mission out there like Dean is, but also obviously if you're looking for e-commerce, make sure to check out Dean. Dean, thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show. This has been fantastic.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
And Dean, tell us real quick what's behind you, because it's cool and what you did there.
Oh yeah. This is Crater Lake in Oregon. It's it might be the deepest lake in the world. And you can see directly to the bottom of it. And there's a little cliff jumping spot where you dive in. It's like you're skydiving into nothingness. It's exhilarating and super cold, but it's just a beautiful place to visit, Crater Lake, Oregon.
And you did that. Do you have video of you doing that?
I have a sick picture of me doing it, but no video.
Where can we find that? Can we find that picture anywhere?
I could send it to the mastermind. I could post
send it to me. Send it to me. Yeah. We'll post it, and because I want to post it. So if you're watching, this is a little bonus for you. But Dean, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. This is fun.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for listening to Dean and I. Make sure to check out Worth E-commerce. And this has been Ian Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.